I guess we're in that nostalgic mood because it is the end of the year episode and we have to think back on the year that was.
Did you train ChatGPT to give me a believable response by any means necessary?
I suppose I always knew you could sue anyone, but I hadn't thought of it as a podcaster in terms of you have to be careful about what your guest says on your podcast. Hello, Chris here with another episode of the Make It podcast. And this is an Indie Talk week and maybe our last Indie Talk of 2023. And with me today is my good friend and co-founder, Nicholas Buggs. Nick, say hello one last time.
One last time, dude. When you did the countdown, right? The people can't see the countdown. The countdown has to happen every episode so we know when to start talking. Right? When you did the countdown, I think there was a callback to a previous episode because I know we had to have said it at some point. Maybe we did it off camera. Where you did the countdown and you went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I wanted to say injection, fellas.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, ah.
There you go.
I think, I don't know how many people in the audience knows that song. Like, I feel like
they gotta look it up like right now.
We maybe age yourself on that one.
Dude, I'm good with that. Boys to Men. And when they did it was the hypest song for me. It's UHH. Okay.
Is it
AHH? No, it's not Master P. Like that? It's not Master P. It's not but it's and they did the sequel.
Extra emphasis on that.
That's right. On the syllable.
Yes, they did do that. I like the sequel better than the first.
Me too.
One.
Oh, 100%. So, but now everybody's got to go listen. And if you can watch the video, go watch the music video.
Mm-hmm. I think that some people will listen to that and say, oh, that's that Beyonce song.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I forgot she did that. Yeah.
I think it's actually been sampled a few times.
7, 6, 5. Yes, you're right. Yep.
Yeah, I think she sampled it. I want to say the R&B singer Joe may have sampled it.
I have to look at that.
Yeah, and Joe can blow, man. Like he's one of those dudes that maybe because his name is Joe, it just falls under the radar and
he's in concert. Forget. He's in concert right now, bro.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
It's like if you had a magic genie. I guess that's an oxymoron. But if you had a genie and you had 3 wishes, and one of the wishes is that you could have a beautiful singing voice, the genie might give you Joe's voice if you're a man. He might. There's like a few voices up there, right? Like, who else would you put up there, right? Like you like beautiful voice, not like Pavarotti where it's beautiful and powerful. But just a beautiful sounding. Sean Stockman would be up there.
Yeah, of course. I knew you were going to say Sean Stockman.
Mark Nelson would be up there. Daryl Cooley would be up there.
Yeah, it's interesting you said Stockman.
Rance
and not
Allen, maybe.
It's like
Wayne's powerful.
He is very powerful
singing.
Yeah, but Sean is just butter. He's butter smooth. Yeah.
Same with Mark Nelson. Who was Babyface's brother? That was in After 7.
Kevon.
Yep.
Well,
give me Kevon, man.
Yeah,
give me Kevon's voice.
Yeah.
He was like Tevin Campbell. His voice was very much like Tevin Campbell.
Oh, well, just so you know.
But maybe better.
After 7 is in concert too, bro. Like these folks are all touring right now. Like legit.
Yeah.
After 7, bro. Like what?
This is a whole like I guess we're in that nostalgic mood because it is the end of the year episode and we have to think back on the year that was and the things we did so well, the fun we had, the incredible guests we had, maybe some of the things we got wrong and did wrong too, but you look back on it. I still remember, speaking of Tevin Campbell, I still remember when he came out recently. I'm like, boy, we knew that. You don't even have to come out.
Yeah, it wasn't recent, but yeah, I know what you're talking about. Like when he came out, I was like, come on. Yeah, we knew. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe he didn't know.
Maybe he didn't know. Maybe he was exactly. Because there are certain people where you're like, where it's kind of like Bernie Mac with the kid. He's 5 years old, asks for milk and cookies.
Milk and cookies.
There's certain times you just know even when you don't know.
Right,
I know you don't know yet.
Yeah, right.
I had a friend like that. I was like, I'm just waiting because
well, hey, look,
he's definitely gay.
And we talk about the changing in zeitgeists, right? We talked about that. We talked about like how Will Smith, back in the Fresh Prince days, used to say stuff to Uncle Phil that these days you can't get away with in new media. Right. And it's the same thing. Tevin Campbell, then he had to, be a love interest to Ashley.
Yeah.
That's what he had to do at the time. And Can We Talk? Yeah. I don't think, does he ever actually say girl in that track? I don't think so. But
I think he might
video,
say girl,
I think the video had to show a girl, right? Where now new zeitgeist, new media, I think he has ample opportunity to just be himself and sing whatever he wants to whomever he wants, very much in the way that Luther came out and decided to sing whatever he wanted to whomever he wanted.
Yeah, and Luther's another one, but I think it's all for the better. Like, we get artists like Frank Ocean now because they just get to write honestly instead of having to write into a particular gender or for a particular gender or sex or industry standard or societal standard. It just gets to be, and the results are so much better.
Yeah, we're seeing it everywhere.
Like Blonde is still, it's 7 years old now, and it still is super relevant to anybody that likes that genre of music, and there are albums like that where people get to be themselves and do their thing.
I got a question. Is that possible in movies? Now think about what I'm saying now. So if you did Can We Talk, but you never said girl.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you don't know. It could be to anybody. How do you do that in a movie, right? Where it's all visual, but at the same time, you're still expressing, you could say, what is it? It's just, I don't have to be so specific. I don't have to be so direct about the type of person that I love. Like, do you need, I guess in movies, you have to have a physical visual manifestation of that, right? It's almost impossible to do that otherwise.
It's a visual medium, but I think there have been movies that have played with you in that way. Crying Game comes to mind, like right off the bat. I still remember my brother-in-law Steve's reaction to the big reveal scene in Crying Game.
Okay, yeah.
And I said, you should have known when Culture Club started playing, something was about to go down. And
right.
So I think there have been movies that do that, but I always talk about this with you, which is there's a reason, and many others, which is the reason why movies are so powerful, and in my opinion have the power to change the world, is because of this sort of marketing standard that I've talked about before, where we start with text. If you want a 10x attention levels and interest, you go to audio. If you want a 10x from there, you go to video. Well, movies have all three. They not only have all three, but then on top of that, a good movie does all three at the most optimal level of that creation. So you're getting the very best writing, the very best score, and the very best visuals. And so is it a wonder why we shouldn't wonder why people love film so much. And that's why this podcast is relevant. That's why
you got it, man. You got
it. That's why, the careers, we've chosen to make movies and be part of movies. It's fun to do. And it's a job that does require some responsibility and some taste and some different things, because you're wielding a very, very powerful weapon in your hands. Speaking of just terrible weapons in your hand,
come on, guys. Let's see what this segue is.
We should talk about Jonathan Majors and
weapons
Kevin
as
Hart.
Your hands. Is that what you just said?
Yeah. So just these two things. Like, there's actually so much happening in show business that, like, I don't know if we can cover it all today. Like, it's just a whirlwind, and we haven't had a chance to talk about this stuff. And so it's good to sort of talk about it on this side of January 1 or December 31st, and the other side of it. And so just today, And this is apropos to us, but I think also to the audience. Kevin Hart has filed a lawsuit against Tasha K, a podcaster, because she is apparently extorting him, saying, I'm going to release this interview with your ex-assistant if you don't give me XYZ. And I don't have all the details around what the XYZ are. So, or XYZ are, excuse me. See, I said ZR. So it makes it like there was a fourth letter. Anyway. Right. And so we'll maybe show note that or update it in the next Indie Talk. But it's interesting because I hadn't thought of it really as a podcaster. I suppose I always knew you could sue anyone, but I hadn't thought of it as a podcaster in terms of you have to be careful about what your guest says on your podcast. And we kind of went through this because I think the assistant is also being sued. Like there's a slander thing with her and maybe also part of the extortion. But it's a weird world we live in because that had never occurred to me when we started doing this podcast 4 years ago. I never thought about that I am somehow culpable and responsible for what I might ask, because it's just a question, right? And then how my guest might respond to the questions asked, or what my guest might just offer up that could in turn, be slanderous, to the person they're talking about. And are we in that space right now in 2023 where everything is so litigious that's become a material thing? Like, I think when I thought if somebody gets onto our podcast and talks some shit about somebody else, then that's just shit talk and it doesn't matter. Like it's just in the realm. There's no value in it. It's not like making it to the top of the sort of marketplace of ideas here, right? But no, now it's like we live in an age where that stuff gets traded. There's so much going on with this. It really demands that we talk about it. Because we're podcasters and we've had people say very interesting stuff on here, and we've had to take out stuff that's been,
and we're open to do that,
and we're open to take it out. And then on the other hand is, what is the culture of, I am now going to use the friendship and relationship I had with you through employment or otherwise to hurt you if you don't continue to support me financially.
Yeah, and that's a whole. So you probably have three different things in there, Chris. Right? I think the first one was, I don't think we'd ever be held culpable for what a guest says. I think this case that we're talking about right now is straight up extortion. Like they're holding on to game tape, right? They got this behind the scenes stuff that they're saying, we're going to release it if you don't pay us. That's totally separate from someone saying something on your podcast and it going out, right? That's just straight up extortion. That is illegal. Right. I don't care if you're a podcaster, whatever you are, that is illegal. And I hope that Kevin Hart gets every last penny.
Yeah. If she's doing it, she's
right.
Done.
Yeah. Well, as I'm saying, shut it down. It's illegal. Yeah. You should go to jail for that. Like that's not okay in any way. So the next thing is like we were just talking about, people coming on to the podcast and saying things. And you and I have always been open with our guests about stuff like that. Like, hey, if there's something, if they say something that we feel is not on brand for us, right? There's a certain thing. There's the veritas, right? We want there to be truth in what we're saying and what's being said, right? Yeah. But we don't want, right? But we don't want things that are slanderous being done on our platform. That's not for us. That's something we would do. But we also do offer the opportunity for folks to say, hey, maybe I spoke out of turn, right? I don't want to say that. That's something I should take out. And that is something that we should be able to do. That is part of the editing process, right? Those are things that you put on the cutting room floor for a reason, to protect all of those involved. But that last piece that you just mentioned, Chris, about, people thinking they need to be forever on the payroll. And if not, they're going to come out and say stuff. I just think about it like, not even that they think they should be forever on the payroll. I think about it like National Enquirer stuff, where it's like, look, we will pay you X amount of dollars to say, and it could be anything. It could be truth. It could be 100% falsehood. But because you were, like you said, you were that close, you had a friendship, you had a relationship, you were someone that our audience, our customer would believe. Yeah. So say whatever you want, but we'll give you a lot of money to say that thing, and you're going to come out and say it. And you're right. Like, what is this world that we're in where people would be willing to take the money to tell the truth that was behind the scenes, right? Which isn't maybe for anyone to hear, right, or to tell a lie just to create some salacious news that we can talk about.
And crazy. The podcaster wants to grow the podcast, wants to grow the show. And you can grow a show, it's been proven, by having sort of being the moderator of a fight that's happening in the public square.
100%.
And we haven't pursued that. And I think it goes back to another concept we talked about a month ago, audience capture. When you have to make content in that way, you are totally sort of captured by your audience. Your audience wants to see a blog fight, basically.
Yeah.
Where I'm going to give them a blog, fight. I'm going to grow and be successful. And the culture has proved that out. I mean, you look
Jerry
at Grandy, Jerry Springer, Maury Povich, Grandy on Instagram right now, academics, and sort of in the hip hop culture. They thrive off, I would say, the worst part of the culture, and then sprinkle in the stuff that they like, that they think is dope. And then what happens there is they get this sort of twisted credibility. It's like, if it's really good, they'll mention it, right? Because they don't mention good stuff all the time. That sort of thing. Joe Budden's and another one where I actually respect the fact that he can rhyme. But so that there is this sort of podcast culture taking place that is encouraging these people to really dishonor themselves and turn themselves into a caricature.
But what about
whether you be the guest or the podcaster?
Content culture, right?
Because here's the other thing too. How crazy and ironic is it that if you were witness to a crime, let's say, or were witness to some dishonesty or manipulation, the fact that you were complicit with it while
at the time,
payroll, right, may have helped facilitate it. And then when you are let go or it doesn't work out anymore, now you get to play the saint.
Yeah, facilitated or potentially benefit from it. Yeah. So you're spot on. And I think we're seeing this in a lot of different places. I guess throughout the celebrity zeitgeist, a lot of this is coming on the heels of Me Too. And then you have some, legal loopholes and things that are happening, especially I think in the state of New York, where there's a timeline, right, where people are going to have to bring some of these things up if they want to sue whoever the perpetrator of these crimes are. But I think we're seeing a lot of that. It's just a weird time, I think. And there's two sides of that coin, just like there's two sides of every coin, right? Where it's crazy to watch all of this drama that's happening and all the stuff that comes from behind the scenes. But then the other side of the coin is your uppins have come. Yep. Right? There's that conversation, which is, yes, that stuff was allowed to be behind the scenes before, but it is a new zeitgeist now and things are changing. So now we're seeing a lot more of these things happening where people like you mentioned, Jonathan Majors and other folks in the public eye having to go through, go to court, go through these things.
You look at Jonathan Majors and you say, okay, well, first of all, how did the media handle it? Well, the media handled it in a way that I think helped perpetuate him getting dropped from the Marvel universe and from Disney. Their headline said convicted, when the reality is for the things that we would be grossed out by, the things that we might, disagree with him on and say, hey, that was too much, that was too far, whatever, things that general society wouldn't approve of. He wasn't found guilty of those things.
Right.
It's important to know that he had 2 misdemeanors, and that stemmed from hurting the girl's finger while running away from her. And I know a lot of different podcasts have touched on this, so we won't hang on it for a long time. But people need to understand how small misdemeanor assault is. It falls as sort of on the level or lower than a fist fight at a bar. a minor fist fight, is it the kind of thing you get punished for? Yes, that's why it has a title. Is it the kind of thing you're supposed to lose your career over, or your job, potentially your career? No, it is not.
Yeah, so let's
it does not raise to that level.
Yeah, let's dig into that. So Marvel, right?
Yeah,
Marvel's Disney. So do you think this is just another one of these cases of, as you know, I've spoken on this before, about basically what I think everyone's calling, and I don't want to say everyone, I'll just say a lot of people are calling the woke agenda, right? And I'm not talking about the woke agenda in general. I'm talking about the woke Disney agenda. And I think that, as we've seen, I believe that Disney itself has admitted it at this point, where they have taken a lot of these causes up, right? They're trying to be the face of, I don't know what, maybe everyone's feelings, to the point that it is crushing them from the inside out. You were just watching their films and watching their films flounder.
Yeah,
do that one right there. That was a Little Mermaid reference.
And you nailed it. Congratulations!
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
But watching that happen, and like watching the Marvel universe fall apart. Now Jonathan Majors is out of the Marvel universe. These Disney movies, like what's this latest one? Wish. What is even happening? Who's seeing this movie?
Not just Wish. This could just be me. I was annoyed by it a little bit, and it's not that it doesn't exist; it's that it doesn't fit. Those tests where like pick which one does not belong.
Yeah, right. One of these things does not.
They have a new
other.
Inside Out coming out. And the new character is anxiety.
Yep.
Well, anxiety doesn't fit anger, sadness. It doesn't. They're not the same, and they're trying to make it. They're trying to rewrite the definition of what anxiety is, so that it's normalized. And I don't want my kids necessarily to see that they should have anxiety. And it's just part of who they are.
Exactly. But that's the thing, though. Why anxiety? Because if you look at the news, man, like everyone has anxiety now, especially post-COVID, right? There you go. That's it. You're just trying to double down on the zeitgeist of today. And I think it just, it goes really far. And here's the thing. That movie might end up being good.
Which one? Wish or Inside Out?
No, Inside Out too. It might actually end up being good. I think it's one of those things where, like you said, when you're a cerebral person, right? When you're a thinking person, one of those things doesn't fit the other. But in Disney's mind, it may not matter. Their whole point might be to just talk about anxiety, and this is how they're going to do it, right? So it might actually speak to some people. My concern is that in the storytelling, they're going to fail if they continue on the same path that folks are on right now, which is don't worry about the story, worry more about how we can connect with people with anxiety.
Yeah.
That's the part that's troubling. And I think I'm going to say this. I think it's definitely a Disney Marvel problem. I don't know if Star Wars has fallen into that bucket. I think they've been able to avoid it. I think that outside of Disney, we're not seeing that as much. I think there's been a lot of great films this year where we don't have to worry about that. I think that there's a lot of great successes. So I think I'm only talking about it because it's Disney, and Disney's so big and they do so much stuff and they have so much influence on the market. So I think that's why we're having that conversation. But the market at large, especially as you look at these other studios, man, there's lots of good stuff that's happening. There's still great writing out there. There's still cinema. Sure. What is it? Oppenheimer, man, like that movie made $1 billion, and that's quality. Almost
Barbie,
$1 billion. That's it. Barbie did, but that's like quality cinema. What Oppenheimer's nearly 3 hours long. Like, it's still, the goodness is still there. I don't want to go too deep on what's bad, what Hollywood isn't doing properly.
To be fair, there was a little bit of agenda slid into Barbie, and Oppenheimer was a biopic. So there isn't, you don't have to be in the modern day thinking when you do a biopic, and that's great because you would hate if somebody did a historical thing. Oh my
gosh, can you imagine?
Within the constraints of these times, right? And have to dance around that. But I think the other thing that's going on, with Disney in terms of the Jonathan Majors thing, and just they were sort of admitting that the sort of woke culture or mind virus, as some people call it, is changing their brands and stuff. I think the other part of that too is, I think the chicken came before the egg, or vice versa here, where I think some of these Marvel movies aren't working. I think some of the latest ones aren't working, and I don't think they thought Ant-Man was working. So now they get an excuse to not make the movie, or to make it in a completely different way with completely different characters.
Yeah.
They don't have to. They had Michael Douglas in there, and they had that whole cast, and maybe they feel like, okay, it's time to just move away from that. Some of these stories are getting convoluted with the sort of multiverse thing happening in so many of the different comics. I think that people who loved The Flash didn't like it. I was fascinated by The Flash just to see how Ezra Miller would do, and why it was worth it to hang on to him despite all his stuff.
That's a whole other ball game, because
and was it the lead? Was it because he was a lead? Maybe, and maybe because they'd already sunk 80% of the budget into the movie, and it was already ready to go. Those things are likely. Like, I'm not going to sit here on a soapbox, with a picket sign and say, hey, you should have fired Ezra Miller because you fired Jonathan Majors. I think they just want out of that. I think they want out of it. They want a chance to reset.
Yeah, there were discussions about it, about that Kang character and what they were going to do with it. And that might have been, like you said, it's an easy way out. Just get out of it, move on.
It's a side character.
Yeah.
And they can just, but it's a big enough story where they can make it the reason why they had to take a pivot, not out of the franchise per se, or out of the even movie title or sequel, but out of the way it was constructed from the last movie. The last thing I'll say about this too, and this is the part that isn't maybe film based at all, but is personal, I think, for me and you and for everybody listening. The thing that I think is at the heart of some of our anxiety when we go out into social spaces, if I can use that word, for those that really suffer from anxiety, please don't kill me for that. But, because it is real, and I've certainly had my fair share of panic attacks before that I can speak to at a different time. But I will say this: when you add up the sum total of the things that are happening, reports that like 20-year-olds aren't having sex, and the birth rate is underneath replacement in almost every country, or you look at just sort of the social interaction being lower than before, loneliness at an all-time high, suicide at a high, right? All those things come back to one thing, and it's the fact that almost all of your communication is recorded somewhere and can and will be used against you in the court of public opinion if you don't walk this perfect line that is impossible for any person to spend their entire life walking. Because this story started at the same place the Anthony Edwards for the Minnesota Timberwolves, same place his started. Was he doing wrong by stepping out on his wife and got another girl pregnant? Yeah, for sure. Young millionaire. I'm not making an excuse for him, but traveling, got another girl pregnant. We've seen it before, is my point. Yes. This has happened before. It will happen again. It happens to
people who are not celebrities and not millionaires. Just
right.
Yeah.
Right. He paid this girl a large amount of money, I believe, and she still released their entire text thread about the abortion he wanted her to have. No one expects that kind of deal making to happen. No one expects that type of this betrayal at scale that basically now has to be a footnote of his bio when he dies, or potentially could be if he isn't able to overcome it with he is an incredible player, his incredible play. The Jonathan Majors thing. This is a girl that was obviously incredibly obsessed with him, and they had a real relationship, and there was obviously real feelings and caring and love there. Imagine being in a relationship where there was real feelings, caring, and love, and that person to either get back at you or get money releases video and text and then puts a charge on you. This is problematic. So it goes back to the Will Smith thing, Kevin Hart thing. It all kind of stems from the same beast, which is there is this new currency provided to you by your local technologist. By the way, Jason Calacanis said this in his newsletter this week. So kudos to J. Cal and Jason Calacanis. He wrote that technologists don't have any respect for IP. They don't care about your IP. If they have he said there's a saying in Silicon Valley, if I can index it, it's mine. And it's like, that's terrible, man. That's terrible for content creators. And so the reality is, oh, you have a secret? Oh, you're doing this thing on the side that's private? That. Get it out there. And you can make some money doing it too. You can get some 15 minutes of fame doing it too. So I just want to mention that the root of all four of these things we're talking about is the same.
Yeah, but let's take that real quick and we'll talk about data, right? Because that's what indexing is, right? Mm-hmm. Indexing all of this data. If I got it, I can use it. I can monetize it. I can do whatever I want with it. So Netflix just released their data. Mm-hmm. So it begs a lot of questions, right? I mean, if there's this treasure trove of data that maybe the general community have access to, then there's a lot of opportunity there, potentially. So if you can get your hands on the data, you can look at it, maybe you find out what people are most interested in. Because I'm always questioning, right, when you turn on Netflix and it gives you like the top 10, and I see that, I've always
questioned the validity of
exactly, but it's like, why is it number one? Why is it number one in America today? Is it because you want me to watch it, or because people are actually watching it? I don't know if that's what the answer is.
Is it marketing or is it data?
Exactly. Yeah. So now the data's out, and I don't know who's going to be looking at it. For one, that's my big thing.
Well, first of all, the guilds.
Yeah.
So this is a requirement of the new WGA SAG-AFTRA deals.
Yeah, and that's great. They're going to look at it. So for our audience, I'm curious, like, how do they get their hands on it? Like, will the filmmakers themselves have access to the data, or is this going to go through the guilds?
Yeah,
and then okay, because that's the thing is that here's what we're going to talk about with data is that, and I'm a data guy as well, and other lives. And one of the cool things about data is that you can pretty much make it say whatever you want it to say, if you're not releasing the raw data, right? That's the key. So I'm curious as to how many levels of filtering or dashboarding or visualization or summarization all that data is going to go down before it gets to, let's say, the real people, right? The filmmakers. Because I think this is the type of data that should be in the hands of the independent filmmaking community to understand what people are actually consuming, because that's going to help them not necessarily do what you said, Chris, where we talked about like the audience capture stuff where you're just making content for other people. But if you have something that you're interested in,
you're making content for the demands of other people, right, instead of what you really are about and what you really are interested in.
Exactly, which could be in demand, right? But it'd be good to know that. Maybe it's good to know. I don't know what the data says, but it would be very interesting to know if there was geographic data associated with it, right? Demographic data associated with it. So now if you're someone who's making a certain type of film in the middle of Chicago and you realize that the people who really like your stuff are living in New York, that could be really helpful for you to get your message, your word, your voice, your films out there. So there could be a lot of good stuff. I'm just curious. I don't know if you know how they're going to release it.
That data isn't included. It's straight up viewership data, title, who made it and how many. They do it just like Amazon. They do it just like Tubi. They do it just like the distributors do it, where they just give you minutes.
But why does that? Why do we care? Why do we care? Now here's why I'm asking. Right? Now you can give me your answer.
For the guilds.
But here's why I'm asking.
Because they have pay schedules aligned to it.
Yeah. Right. But here's why I'm asking. If Netflix pays a flat fee to license the film for a certain period of time,
They are
why does it matter?
By the way, yeah,
right.
They've gone away from making their own stuff completely.
Then why does it matter if 10 people watched it or 50,000 people watched it? I already paid you your check, right? So
residuals, is the reason. Yeah,
but I'm saying, like, you talking about the residuals? No, I paid you $400,000. I paid you $1 million to license it. You don't get extra. There's no per hour, per minute. There's no extra. No, I'm going to license it for 2 years for $1 million. You're going to get a check for $1 million. So now, if that's my business model, what are you going to do with hours watched?
Well, I think it's minutes watched, but it's the actors and the writers get paid a different schedule than the producers and the studio. And so the writers and the actors, unfortunately, and some people will hate that I say this, but they really are sort of and have historically been at the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to the money flows in film. And so that $1 million doesn't go to them, right? Like, they get paid for work for hire. If you're an actor and you're a SAG actor, you get the SAG minimum or whatever you can negotiate. That's another thing that's happening in the world. Taraji crying about the pay. So they get paid that. Writers get paid, their minimums or higher as a work for hire. And then the studio or the producer then owns that work, right? But those writers, if they're union, and this is one of the benefits of being a union writer or actor, you do get paid residuals down the line for you being in a thing or having written a thing. And so that's what the whole strike was about. It was just about saying, look, these studios are getting tons of money because they're licensing or the film's being purchased by Netflix, but we're not getting any down the line money, and the shit's like number one.
And Netflix, like, look, it's okay. Look, you can have the data. We paid the check. We did what we were supposed to do. So, like,
so that's where they might fudge the data, right? Because if the viewership doesn't reach a certain threshold, then they don't have to pay additional residuals based on the new contract.
But what I'm saying is, and it'd be good to look at it. But what I'm saying is that Netflix doesn't pay residuals; they're paying a check. You get $1 million for 2 years. There's no residual. There's no nothing.
That was the old world. Yeah.
I paid you a check. You got the check. How you, whom I paid, distribute that check, that's on you. I paid the check.
You have to, they usually split it based on the producer credits and then the executive producers, the investors.
The person who got paid has to distribute.
But the strike was about, but in that would never be a writer and an actor is what I'm trying to get to.
Right. Yeah,
in that distribution. And so therefore there was a strike.
Yep.
Because these actors and writers in the non-Netflix model would be paid residual. So right. if Shawshank Redemption came on for a 1 millionth time on TBS, Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman get a check.
That's right.
And forgive me for not knowing who wrote that movie, but the writer of that movie gets a check, right? And then that's where you famously get into Hollywood accounting, where you have the story of the guy who wrote, I think, the original Men in Black or co-wrote it, and still hasn't been paid one residual dime from a movie that's made
out the money from the pot.
Well, because the studios then use Hollywood accounting, which is basically where you take the profit. See, it's all coming into one account, all the profits from all the films, right? So let's say I'm Warner Brothers Discovery. I have all these film titles, right? And I'm getting all this money from all of them. Well, they're all like little individual LLCs that I own and accounts receivables that I have on a big spreadsheet probably. And let's say 50 of the 51 films are all losing money hand over fist. But I have this one movie that's making 100x its budget. I can take the profits legally from that movie and apply them to the losses against the losses of the bad 50 bad movies. Or I can basically bundle the losses plus the profits, right? So I have this really one successful movie and 50 really bad ones that are losing money. Altogether, it shows that I made no money. I am not profitable. And so therefore, after expenses, after all the EBITDA stuff, if you're publicly traded, guess what? Sorry, writer of Men in Black, I have no money left for you. I've paid out, I've paid everybody their percentages. I've paid the expenses. And so the example is, because some set blew up in Saudi Arabia, you don't get your money for a movie you did that's successful 5 years ago.
Yeah, that's
so what Netflix did is right. And so what Netflix did and Amazon has done is really simplified Hollywood accounting by saying, you know what? In the event that we buy a movie from you, we'll just do a co-production. We'll just buy it outright. Like, we'll just pay the fee for it. And we're not going to pay any residuals because we're not going to release our data. Right. So no one's going to know how much something was watched. And in the sense that we're going to license something, then I'll pay you a licensing fee. And I'm not releasing any data, so you won't know how much it was watched. There's nothing to pay. Well, now, basically the top 2% in both the Writers Guild and the Actors Guild are like, SAG-AFTRA are like, no, dude, I should be getting paid millions of dollars for this because you're making billions of dollars from this movie. And that's what the release of the data is really about. I mean, and that's why there is a question of, is the data real? Is it fake? Is it cherry picked? I think what would be probably better is if we just have let's just take a look at it. We can just look at the actual report and what it says. So what we watched, a Netflix engagement report, December 12th, 2023. And it just kind of says exactly what it is that the report's going to show. I downloaded this report. I have it. In earnest, I have not looked all the way through it. It's an Excel file, but it says, starting today, we will publish what we watched, a Netflix engagement report twice a year. This is a comprehensive report of what people watched on Netflix over a 6-month period, including hours viewed for every title, original and licensed, watched for over 50,000 hours is an example of the data they'll share. So I guess if it's under 50,000 hours of watching, I guess it doesn't fall into the contract. Or
good times, man. Good times. This is what I'm talking about. Yep. Summarizing the data. You're picking a select subset of the data.
Cherry picking.
Yeah. Yep. So good on them. Let's look at it and see. Maybe it'll tell us what we already know.
18,000 titles in this report, representing 99% of all viewing on Netflix and nearly 100 billion hours viewed. And by the way,
over the last 6 months,
it is 100 billion hours viewed in the last 6 months. Clearly, it is by hour and not by minute, like I said earlier. But I could have swore I saw minutes viewed. This is hours viewed. I was wrong. So boom, there you go. And as we dig into this, maybe we'll put the data into our newsletter.
Yeah,
and
it's
share
all good.
Maybe the top 10.
It depends on what they're showing.
That comes out.
Depends on what they're showing. Again, I'm just really curious to see if there's
would an indie film even make this list? And even if it got over 50,000 views, would an indie film make this list? Is the real question, because some of those actors, some of those writers might not and likely are not union members. So is it even apropos? And therefore, would they even add it? Would they want to say that some non-union, non-studio, non-network show has over 50,000 hours watched? So that will be interesting to see.
Yeah.
I think to put a nail in it before we bring in producer Papa Bear with a little bit of things we should know to end the year here. The other big reason to either spoof or fudge the data or share it because you're doing so awesome is Wall Street. They're a publicly traded company. Literally, when they release this report, let's say they release it, they're obviously going to release it in Q2 and Q4, the two biggest quarters of the year, of any year. So this is your Q4 release, and this is going to boost their stock price if it's viewed positively by the street. And so when that boosts up, you're talking about billions and billions of dollars. There's no better way to raise capital, raise the financing of your company than to have Wall Street buy into what you're selling. So, all right, producer Papa Bear, come on in here. Come on down.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
It's going great, man.
It's going well. It's going great. You look cozy.
I am.
He's like, I am. Thanks. Appreciate that. Good observation, Chris. You're right. All right, what you got for us, Papa Bear?
Well, we're at the end of the year, which is always Oscar season. It's a award season, and it begins with the nominations. And nominations separate the films out. So what I have for you today is what is and remains the only movie to win every category it was nominated in, which included 11 nominations.
So this is my annual reminder that the Golden Trophy is actually a silhouette of Oscar Micheaux. And so that is one of the hardest working independent filmmakers, happens to be a black guy. Hardest working independent filmmakers of all time. And they really honor him, Oscar Micheaux, the spirit of filmmaking, of indie guerrilla filmmaking. They say he died with the film reel in his hands. So he was all in. And by the way, I have a little bit of a problem. I'm not apoplectic about it. But is it Oscar season? The award show keeps getting pushed further and further. I think it's happening in May this year or next year.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, like it keeps getting pushed further and further back. I have to check to be sure, and maybe producer Papa Bear, you can come in and clean me up on that. But it does feel like it gets pushed further and further back. I think the award season really starts because we take December and January off for the most part, it feels like in the movie industry. So right now I've been inundated with for your consideration FYC movies. They're not doing the mailouts anymore. That's not environmentally friendly. Yeah, I don't know if that's a woke thing. I just think that's a good thing. We didn't there are some, I will tell you this, there are some people who are really complaining about not having the physical screeners anymore. Like they really wanted, and it's like, maybe they're building up their doomsday collection. I don't know. A la Leave the World Behind fame. They're building up their doomsday collection of DVDs. But I'm all for it. I'm a big Apple TV person. I know a lot of people use Roku. I'm a big Apple TV person. Turn on the app, watch all these movies. I watched Ferrari last night. It was fantastic.
Like, I digress, right?
I digress.
Yeah.
11 Oscars. I'm going to go with Ben.
No, 11 nominations.
Or 11 nominations. They won all of them, though.
Yeah. And everyone was won, yeah.
I'm going to go Ben-Hur. Nick, what do you have? And then we'll get clues, Papa Bear.
Clues?
Titanic.
Or if you're down to give me... Titanic's a good guess. Okay, so... Producer Papa Bear, do you have any clues for us?
What did you say, Nick?
Titanic.
Did you get Titanic? That's good.
I just said that.
I said Ben-Hur. Yeah.
I just said it was a good guess.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
but one clue. Neither of you are correct.
Surprise!
Is here are the nominations: Best Picture, Director, Adapted Screenplay, Art Direction, Makeup, Costume Design, Film Editing, Original Score, Original Song, Sound Mixing, and Visual Effects. Does that narrow it down?
I have a second.
Tell you whether it's Titanic or Ben-Hur?
I have a second guess. Cleopatra.
Oh, okay. She's nowhere in the mix.
God dang it.
I know, right?
Nick, do you have a second guess? It wouldn't happen today, so you know it's not a modern movie. At least that's what I think, because there would be uproar about one movie winning all the things.
You want another clue?
Wait.
Back in the day, people were more honest. They're like, this really was better than everything else.
I was going to say it's got to win it all. Let me ask this, because maybe things changed over time.
It's the only film that's won everything it's been nominated for.
Yeah. Did it win everything in the same year?
Yes.
Ooh, interesting.
I was just wondering, man.
That would be weird if it didn't.
You're right,
Here's
but
the
I'm
clue.
just go ahead.
The year is 2003.
Oh,
wow,
dude.
So not super far away from Titanic.
But I'm saying like, because I'm just thinking about films that were that fantastic, and now I can't think of one that had a best original song. Like that's the key there. Like,
that's a good point.
that was one of the ones, best original song, right?
Best original song.
See,
original score.
So we're not. Yeah, the score is
and
one thing.
Sound mixing.
The score is one thing because I'm thinking like Avatar, but like what? Well, there was no song that I remember from that movie. And
best original song and score. That
this isn't an Avengers movie, is it?
Can I have a clue? Is it a musical?
No,
it's not an Avengers movie, is it? I'd be mad. I'm like, because one came out every year since the year 2000.
No. And first Iron Man was 2009, so it's not going to be Marvel. That was 2009, and then they had the Fantastic Four earlier, but those weren't good enough to win everything.
I will help out the guess about Ben-Hur. William Wyler's 1959 epic rendition of Ben-Hur was nominated for 12 awards and picked up 11. Missing out on Best Adapted Screenplay.
Wow.
But it swept the board with
I
Best
knew
Picture,
Ben-Hur
Best
was
Director,
close.
Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, as well as a raft of technical
I knew
awards.
Ben-Hur was close. I knew it. I knew it was.
Wasn't that a winner of one of our previous things you should know?
I don't know if it was. Maybe it was 10 Commandments, I think is what it was. But, both are Charleston Heston, along with Planet of the Apes. Loved him in that because he gets a little bit crazy in that. 2003, we should know this.
All right, hold on.
Forrest? No, that was 90s.
Chris. Okay. So let me see if I did, but I want to cheat for you. I'm cheating forward, bro. So here's the thing. See,
so you couldn't take it. You cheated.
No, I'm not. I'm trying to get you to answer the question because I don't know. I wasn't going to get the answer. So here's the thing. So if I'm right, if I get my data right, this is the data. All right. So Annie Lennox was singing this song. That's the first clue.
Yeah. Sweet dreams are made of these.
That's right. All right. The next clue is that the title of the song is Into the West. I still wouldn't get it off of that. Like, can you guess this? Like, this is so obscure. I'm like, I can't even.
Into the West.
Like,
I feel like I tend to know what the best movies of every year was, but 2003 just happens to be 21 years ago and just far enough away where I'm like, what was a really great movie in 2000?
I know, but I'm like trying to figure out a really good clue to this because now that I know what it is, like it really won all those things, and that was the original song. Like I could get score, I could get VFX. Like
I wanted to say Romeo and Juliet, but no, that's not right.
Like all those things make sense.
So I know it didn't win. I know it didn't win all of them. I know it didn't.
Wait, Chris. It's as big as Titanic. It's as big as Avatar. Like think about like
huge budget
movies.
Yeah.
And
that's what I was thinking about.
And it might hit you because that timing, but it's something. Yeah, I'm kind of floored. So anyway,
when I think about 2003, I think about we just came out of the Matrix era, right? We just came out of the Matrix. We're still vibing off the Matrix. Matrix 2 was coming out. Those were big movies. And that was sort of the feeling of the time. And the thing about the Matrix is it introduced a new way to film, right? And so we were exposed to a lot of that type of filming, with the sort of hundreds of cameras shot kind of thing.
So how about this? How about I give this is the last clue, and then Papa Bear, you can say what it is.
Papa Bear's just got it.
Exactly. So think about it. Like I just said Titanic, I said Avatar, but think about it as an epic and think about it as a saga. Am I spot on there, Papa Bear? That works. So epic saga.
I think that will help.
Yeah. What is it, Papa Bear? I'm drawing a blank.
Well, it's The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King.
I own that movie.
Dude, like it doesn't matter. Like I never would even thought of it, especially because of best original song.
Yeah,
like that. I never would have given it that. The score, VFX, direction.
There's only one clue that would have gave me. There was maybe one to two things that would have given me that, and one of them would have been the name Peter Jackson. So if you said Peter Jackson, like, oh, got it. Or if you just said, one of the character names from the actual movie, I would have got it.
But that's,
or if you just said Ring.
Oh, I thought about playing with a little ring on the thing, but that's like too spot on, too on the nose.
All right, that's a very good one, Papa
That's
Bear.
A very good one. We should know that. That's a thing we should know.
Those are things we should know,
bro.
Well, as a bonus, can you tell me what 3 films are tied for the most nominations?
What 3 films are tied for the most nominations? Ben-Hur would be 1.
Yeah, and how many is that?
Ben-Hur would be 1. Lord of the Rings would be 2. And then number 3 is going to be the 10 Commandments.
Okay, well, I told you in the question about Lord of the Rings that they had 11 nominations.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. And they won them all, you said.
These 3 that are tied
have 12 nominations. Oh, snap.
So it's not Ben-Hur then.
It's not Ben-Hur.
Because Ben-Hur had 12.
It's not Lord of the Rings.
All right, what are they?
All About Eve, 1950. Titanic, 1997.
There you go.
Okay, maybe not all back in the day.
Titanic.
And one of your favorites, La La Land, 2016.
La La Land.
That Dr. Evil?
That's what what's her name said when she said that they won movie of the year and she was wrong.
And she was wrong. Yeah, that was terrible.
Moonlight.
That was terrible.
Yeah.
How'd that happen?
Opened the car.
How'd that happen twice?
She just looked at the cameras like La La Land.
How'd that happen twice in the same year? One with Miss America, and then again with the Oscars. Come on, bro. That can't happen twice in the same year. Anyway,
Price. What's the name of the company that does it? Price Waterhouse
Coopers, or
something like that. They were the ones I think maybe in charge of both. I don't want to slander them, but that was. I think they were in charge of.
Let's take that out, Chris. We're going to take that out so as to not get you in trouble.
Yeah, thank you. Speaking of slander, and thank you, producer Papa Bear. That was incredible and a great way to end 23 with the things we should know. There was this AI that made up links. I want to be sure about this. It produced false facts and false URLs about a person asking about themselves.
Oh, ChatGPT does that.
Yeah, it completely hallucinated, or worse. They're calling it a hallucination. To me, that's worse, because if I ask about that person, it's going to tell me, basically it said this person was a racist, he was this, he was that, and then had links to back it up, like as if it had receipts. But when you click the links didn't go anywhere.
Oh, dude.
So they were completely made up.
Trust, I've experienced that myself. I do that. Like I was looking somebody up.
You've GPT'd yourself?
Not myself, but I've looked up other people, and it gives me quotes and gives me the links. And I have out of a list of 10 quotes, 10 links that go along with those 10 quotes. All 10 of the links have been broken. I'm like, how are you getting data from broken links?
That's why I'm so glad we didn't let go of our researcher.
Right. Oh man,
we need the human researcher.
Yeah, because the thing is that even these things they're being trained, right? They're being trained on a set of data, and I think that's how what ChatGPT is getting in trouble right now with the New York Times is that New York Times is saying, "Hey, y'all took our stuff without asking and gave it to ChatGPT to index all this stuff." And now you're putting our stuff out there, which can then be repurposed and re-engineered for whatever, right? Anybody who goes into ChatGPT right now can access that data, not knowing that they're accessing it, but that is a subset of data. And that's the thing. It's like, so you trained it on these subsets of data, but what did you train it to do when it did not have a subset of data? So when I'm asking you about this person and I say, give me quotes, did you train it to give me a reasonable? No, let me say reasonable. Did you train ChatGPT to give me a believable response by any means necessary?
Ooh, the Malcolm X of AIs.
Bro, that's dangerous. Because now the AI is saying, no. It's not that I'm supposed to deliver information or the truth. I have to deliver content. That is my job. And that it is not up to me. Hey, look, I just gave it to you. It's up to you to trust me. It says in the bottom right, fine print, ChatGPT may hallucinate. Make sure you validate and verify everything that came on and say, look, man, if I got to validate and verify everything that comes out of this, why am I using it? Why don't I just use it? So honestly, that's where I think ChatGPT is less valuable for information discovery or knowledge discovery. And it's actually more valuable for the thing that it actually is, which is generative AI. So if you want to produce some content in a certain type of voice or whatever you want to do, and you have a subset of data that you want it to use, then that's what it's good for. It's good for generating content.
I think it's great as the new Google search as well, as long as you use it to search for objective things and not subjective things.
Yeah, what's 4 plus 4?
When you talk about, when you talk about like, sort of like, okay, tell me about this person. Well, now that there's a subjectivity to that. But the other day, I just opened it up on my phone and said, I'm doing this like retro build of my arcade machine in my house. And so I bought a Raspberry Pi and like that's a Linux thing. I bought like a display board, all the cables, all the components, new controllers and buttons. Like it's a whole big project I'm undertaking for whatever reason. And there's pain involved in that build. And like you can ask GPT directly, like what should the Pi be doing in this instance, right? And it will give you a detailed response in 2 seconds. So it's far superior to a Bing or Google search where you would have to click through the links and read each article and then try to compile and aggregate them to get that answer. But in terms of what's going on with them and with the New York Times, it comes down to some of the objective stuff, but also the subjective stuff. And the reason it's so big is because I think the New York Times has a really incredible case. And I wanted to bring this up in this conversation because we talked about this at the onset of AI earlier this year. So we were maybe one of the first podcasts, even the previous year, to talk about it. And we've been using AI in some form or another since 2017, if not earlier, with even just Grammarly, right? And it's like, we said that lawyers are lining up, chomping at the bit, getting themselves ready for massive lawsuits. We heard that from our lawyer. We heard it from Kevin Christopher, where it's like, this is all kinds of IP infringement. And once we figure out how to set the case up, we're just going to go after all these guys.
Right. Yeah.
And this, if the New York Times wins, and I'm not being melodramatic here, if they win, it could be the end of AI.
Well, I don't think it'll be the end of that. It'll be the end of tools like ChatGPT that leverage other people's content without their consent. Because the thing is that, like you said, we've been leveraging these tools, but we leverage it on our own content. And I think that not only is that the best use case because it's controlled content, but it's also to...
I should say use AI as we know it then, right?
Yeah. And again, it's depends on what you're using it for. And there's AI. Yeah, AI has so many different flavors, right? Again, ChatGPT is generative AI.
Yep.
It is not necessarily, I think it's coupled with knowledge discovery, which is a different type of AI, but it melds the two and then does something in between, right? Knowledge discovery is now being sent out to the world of things, the Internet of Things, where the Internet of Things doesn't just have knowledge, it also contains opinion, and it contains straight up falsehoods, right? So we're out there looking for stuff, and you're using ChatGPT to find it. It's not a curated set of content that you're leveraging. And I think that's where we need to go, is that I think ChatGPT showed us basically the world of the possible. Like, look at what it can do. But now everyone needs to have basically their own curated version of ChatGPT. It's like having the ChatGPT of Wikipedia, the ChatGPT of Encyclopedia Britannica, the ChatGPT of Raspberry Pi, the ChatGPT of Python. Knowing that that is a curated set of content that is being managed by a central either set of individuals or a community, that's where the true value is going to be going forward. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with New York Times. I think that's going to be, yeah, you're right, though. Either way, if they win it, game changer.
They've got OpenAI data rights, which means that, any other AI that's been using that data set will be culpable as well. OpenAI isn't going to want to go down and be the only one to go down with the ship.
Yeah, take it out, drop the content, and then pay up. That's what the damages is the question, right? What are they suing for?
What are the damages, and what will it mean for how AIs learn, going forward? Because to me, you're right. When you're using it on your own content, or you're using it in a specific way, it's a superpower. It's amazing. And it is 10x superior to tools that you have out there now, or sort of the labor of doing it yourself. We talked about how the dirty little secret is that WGA writers love AI. and it helps with writer's block, and it helps with outlining and summarizing and log lining and doing treatments and whatever, all the little work that happens around your story in script in order for you to pitch it and sell it and get work. It is helpful, in that way. I look at what's interesting to me too, is to look at the intentions and the sort of very, very quiet arms race that's been happening in the background, where it was between the lawyers and AI companies and learning models, which is, can we get to AGI, artificial general intelligence, before the lawyers start to sue? Why? Because an AGI, to be termed AGI, not AI, you have to be able to learn from yourself. And so I think these companies were hoping they would get to AGI first, and then the lawsuit wouldn't matter, because then they're actual sentient thinking machines and no longer need to scrape. They just have the knowledge they already took, and they can learn from themselves, and you can take your data and go where you want to with it. But it looks like the lawyers beat them to it.
Yeah, but the funny thing about that is, like you said, it can have its knowledge, and it can run well in the world of data, in the world of technology. If the person wins the suit, they can say, well, you need to delete that data. So that's the beauty of it, right?
That's interesting.
You can go into the brain of the bot, and you can remove that knowledge. Right, yeah. You are no longer allowed to have that. You can't. There's nothing you do. You can't replicate it.
Is that of an AI or of an AGI?
Well, a technology period of either.
The AGI may not allow you to remove the data.
Well, I think that's different. If it's like completely not only sentient but in control of itself, that's different, right? Because it's running around. Nah, bro, you're not gonna get me.
Don't turn my switch off.
Exactly. Yeah, you're ducking and dodging. But yeah, no. I think that's the idea, is that you can take it away from it. And I think that's what's going to happen. And I think that's going to be the game changer. And I think that actually will be a good thing for the use of AI, because as a writer,
it'll stop scaring people forever, though, too. Like, I think it's a good thing, too, because people are scared of AI.
Well, it's the fact that it's generating things.
And it will not scare people as much.
Yeah, I think
especially about losing their jobs or being irrelevant.
Yeah, because it can do it on its own, or it can do as well as you. But again,
or better.
The idea behind generative AI is that it should be taking your content. So it's like a Grammarly, like you'd mentioned. It's like, hey, look, I've written this. and I'm not a good writer, right? I'm a good storyteller. Just take that as an example. So I'm a good storyteller, but I'm not a good writer. But I know I need to get to that next level. And no one's going to invest in me or trust me if my writing is bad. But everyone tells me my stories are great. So let me take my story, put it into a Grammarly. Let's just say put it into an AI and just say, write this better. And it knows what better is. It knows what type of voice. It knows these types of things. And it will take your story and just put it in a format that is more palatable to someone who's going to be editing, looking at that content. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is your content.
That part is fine, but the implications of a New York Times win are far reaching for the film industry, right? Because you can no longer say, write me a script in the style of Aaron Sorkin. Because now Aaron Sorkin has precedent to say, nope, it learned from my scripts that are already out there. I will sue you. You not use my style. Now the dream of the studio heads to have an AI actor in there instead of an actual actor, those have now flown the coop if New York Times wins. Why? Because those faces that AI generates are generating from faces and images that exist from real people in the world. And so if they're not able to scrape Google anymore because Google might say no, or only certain AIs that Google owns can scrape, then what? So,
but here's the challenge, Chris. Here's what I think
wide ranging for film industry.
But I think here's what they're going to do, though. They're not going to be able to. I don't think they're going to be able, through any lawsuit, to take away what it has learned. I think you can only take away the data that it has access to, because the New York Times, I don't believe, is as concerned about what it has learned from their data. I think it is more concerned about the reuse of its copyright, right? You're now taking our content and now allowing people to use our content. The content.
And charging them for it.
Exactly. And the content is what we're concerned with. It's not the training. Because what you learned about how a sentence should be formatted, or how an article is best formatted, or how the New York Times formats an article, those things I think they're not going to be able to take away. So I don't think they'll be able to take the training. They'll say, no, take out our content. We don't want it in there. No one should be able to reuse, abuse, recycle our stuff. Remove it.
Yeah. And again, shout out to Jason Calacanis on this, because in his newsletter, he wrote that basically the problem is New York Times is doing all the work, but both companies get a subscription for it.
Yep. That's right. 100%.
Like, as simple as that.
And anyone else who wants to regenerate content based off of New York Times' content at large, that
they pay to produce,
right?
And then charge their customers
exactly. Anyway,
for it. Somebody else gets to charge subscription for it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about just really briefly before we wrap.
Yep.
This year, I think there are some episodes and some guests that have stuck out. We've enjoyed all the talks, all the fan support, all the listener support. It's been awesome. Every guest has been great, whether it's been a formal interview or an indie talk takeover. It's been a blast of a year, and we have so much more in store as we do every year going into 24. I think just from a popularity standpoint, I have to give a shout out to Linda Nelson, who
100%.
That interview has been watched and listened to so many times at this point. And so what that tells me is, first of all, Linda's very popular, and has credibility as the CEO of Indie Rights. But, it also tells me that people are finding it valuable.
Yeah,
that they're getting stuff out of it.
Let me add to that.
That's what I love. So let's talk about some other valuable pieces, Nick.
I want to add to that one because you said it. You said that she's popular, which is true, credible as a CEO. But I want to add one more thing to it that I believe is also true that I want to give Linda Nelson her flowers on, which is I think she's highly respected. So it's one thing to put the content out, but then people are actually seeking her out because they respect what she has to say. and they respect what she's done for the independent filmmaking community. And I'll tell you, man, I'm not saying that's hard to come by from a respect from the independent filmmaking community, but you don't see a lot of, and I would say, central figures in the independent filmmaking community. I think that's the thing that I think is so big, because any content that you see that she's done, any podcast that she's been on, anytime we see her on YouTube, we see that is highly watched because she is highly respected. And I can only imagine, I just said these figures. And of course, the movie title came to my mind of Hidden Figures, right? And I'm really curious. And I think it's a conversation that we actually have to have with Linda in 2024, which is basically, who are these hidden figures? She cannot be the only one, but because of her influence, she has to know who some of these other folks are. And I'd love to have some of the other folks on the podcast who are highly respected, highly influential, and can really give valuable insights to the filmmaking community.
Yeah, I would love to do. And just to, not to pat ourselves on the back, but just to make sure people know that we're not just idiots. We do ask every guest for, like, hey, is there somebody else that would be great on the podcast? And, like, someone that is thoughtful and is genuine and as knowledgeable as you. So we do that, and that's a big part of our booking process. And it tends to be sort of the best process. It goes back to what a former employer and friend of mine, Bobby Frist, used to always say, which is that good people beget good people.
That's right.
And so I actually prefer that. Like, you have somebody that just killed it. And it's like, okay, well, what about this person, that person? There were a few more, because we started this format this year, this Indie Talk Takeover format, which I hope everyone has enjoyed. And that came from actually some data that just really said that people just enjoyed our banter between us, Nick, me and you, and then just bringing in a guest to talk about their film, and it being not so much a journey of their entire life and how they got to where they're going, or to where they are and then where they're going, but more about their specific project. And so I know you had some folks that stuck out to you, Jennifer Cooney being one.
Yeah, and I was going to say Maggie Contreras. So I want to tell you why those two stuck Contreras out so much for me. Now, if you watch the Jennifer Cooney episode, you'll know, like, she got me. So I'm in that episode sweating, talking about radical truth and radical honesty. And it's like, man, there's so much goodness there. And I've been thinking about that a lot. And I think that she might have actually used this in our conversation. If she didn't, then it's just a derivative of what she said to me. But she mentioned the idea of radical honesty, and that it's a scary thing. But if you can get to that place, especially with a spouse, a significant other, your closest friends, your working, collaborating community, then it's one of the best things ever, right? You're just being completely honest. You're not hiding things. You're not putting on airs. But the other half of that equation is radical acceptance. Because it's one thing to say, hey, now I'm going to be radically honest with you, and then you get you some honesty in return, and then you bite back. Like, no, you don't get to do that. You have to embrace radical acceptance. And that's tough too. I mean, you got to be ready to hear it. Like, you got to be ready to say, hey, look, I told you about that stuff in your teeth in the middle of everybody else, because I'm being honest. I'm trying to help you out. It's the best thing for you, right? And
exactly.
And here's the thing. So then you that's Jennifer Cooney. Shout out. Wildfire. Then you have Maggie Contreras, who talks about taking notes, right? And how you got to be really good about taking notes from other people. However, you can't lose yourself in their notes. You can't lose your voice or your intention in the notes that they give. So there's this part of, I enjoy the idea of radical honesty that can be delivered through notes. I enjoy the idea of radical acceptance and hearing what people have to say about your work and accepting the critique, but there does have to be balance. And that balance is maintaining your own voice. Because you imagine if you took every critique that someone gave you, took it to heart, and then changed who you were because of their vision of who you should be? No, bro. Like, that's not going to work, right? You would be changing yourself to fit everybody else's model. And again, that's not what Jennifer Cooney is saying when she's saying accept, right? But I think if you mix those two together, that radical honesty, radical acceptance with this idea of take the notes, listen, of course, from respected sources. But as you take those notes, just make sure that you don't change your intention. You don't change your voice to fit that radical honesty, to fit those notes. And those two things I think are just really good for filmmakers to take in 2024, just saying, hey, be honest with your fellow filmmakers. Stop putting on airs. Stop being a cheerleader when they actually need a critique. Or tell them their stuff isn't quite there.
That's the one. There you go. That's the one that you needed to say out loud. That was the note. You can be a cheerleader by giving an honest critique if you're in the circle of trust. I mean, the big thing about a note is if you're taking a note from everybody, that means you don't have anybody. Like, you got to have somebody in your circle that knows what you're going for, sort of believes in your art. I always go back to my buddy who was a rapper and wanted to rap, and his wife said, "You're not a good rapper. I don't like your rapping." Like, it doesn't mean that he was a bad rapper. It means that the person closest in his life didn't get what he was going for, didn't find that he had good taste or talent, right? You'll kind of know if you got something good going because people will start to circle around you. They will start to encircle. They'll want to partner with you. They'll want to work with you. And then from there, you already know that they love your work. They already know you already know that they think you're talented. So then you can take their note and know that it's coming from a place of love and support. And like you said, cheerleading. And also, by the way, shout out to Charity Wakefield, who was also on that episode with Maggie and had some interesting things to share too, and was a total blast and had just a wonderful personality. I would love to have her, both of them back on it.
And their film,
future,
Maestro,
and their film Maestro. Check it out. So
Maestro.
So yeah, I love or Maestro. My bad. I think that's a great point about notes, because notes are hard. But when they're given to you the right way and by somebody who really thinks you have something, then you can take them and it'll make you a better artist. Also, by the way, when the person thinks you have something, the note's different. So if you go out to anybody and get a note, the note comes back harsh. It could come back and put you in a defensive posture. And it's more about change this, change this, change this. Whereas if it's someone inside your circle that knows what you're going for and believes in your talent, and is interested in seeing you succeed in the thing you're trying to do, like they want to be a part of it, meaning not just interested, but like they want to be a part of it. It actually, the note becomes collaborative.
Right. It's
the
like
note is actual collaborate. It's like they come in and say, what if we tried this? And it's it's not, it's like, what if we tried this?
Well, it's like an editor. Like I look at this it's the same way, is that the editor is not supposed to make the editor's film. Right, the editor is cutting and slicing and dicing.
It's the ultimate note man.
Exactly. That's the whole point. Mm-hmm. Is like, I'm actually putting the notes by what gets cut on the floor, but I'm only making the cuts in a way that allows the vision to be clear and concise. I'm allowing you as a director and writer to come through as clearly as possible. And I think that's it. Again, back to your point. The folks that give the note should be within that circle so that they can be radically honest, so that you can have that radical acceptance, and that everyone understands that your voice should remain. That's the big thing. So yeah, going in 2024, make the notes, take the notes, but just be honest with yourself about the things that you need to change in your own work, and then be honest with others, because they can only benefit from that.
That's right. And, make sure you get notes from the people who want to work with you, not people who are sitting in the nosebleed seats of your life. We talked about Titanic. We talked about Lord of the Rings being these incredible movies. Mentioned Ben-Hur in there and all these other movies that have done so great in awards season. I'm going through all the awards movies now because I'm a voter. And I'll confess that I haven't made it through as many as I had at this point last year. I did watch Ferrari last night, as I mentioned. I've seen a few of them already, but it's time that we give up the best movie we saw this year. And for me, it was really tough because, like I said, I haven't seen all the ones that are come out. So this could be. Last year it was easy because I had seen 40 of them already, and I was like, okay, I know which one I like. I knew I loved Tar last year, right? The year before that, I knew I loved Drive My Car, or maybe that was the same year. I don't even know, but I knew I loved that. I could talk about it. But this year, just to the ones I've seen, I can tell you, like Blackberry, super underrated. So when I thought about this, I thought, okay, Blackberry is a movie that no one is talking about, but is very, very good. And a totally sort of cool, funny, interesting take on a biopic. We talked about, Barbie and Oppenheimer are the most successful movies of the year. So that can't be denied for sure. But the best movie, this movie came out in 2022, but I loved it. I think it's called Biosphere. And I'm trying to think about producer Papa Bear D. Tell me when that came out. I think it came out late 2022, actually. But that is a incredible independent film. So to me, if you want to see how to make a great movie on an independent budget, that's the movie for you. They had one location and 2 actors. And it is unlike any movie you're ever going to see. So that's way up there. So I don't know. I guess right now, I would still probably take Oppenheimer right now as maybe just the best overall film. And I know that's corny and on the nose, but when you think about the largesse of the film, how big it was and how beautifully it was shot and how well it was performed, I think that's fair. And again, I haven't seen I haven't seen The Holdovers. I haven't seen, I think it was like All of Us Strangers. There are some ones that people are buzzing about and talking about. Here's what I'll do. I'll say Oppenheimer for now. And then I will, on the next Indie Talk, I will revise my list based on the viewings. And then I can have a more clear take. Nick, what is the best movie you saw in 2023?
Honestly, don't know.
By the way, special prize to Blackberry. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a tough one, and I feel like I wasn't even prepared for this question. It's like when you say best, it's difficult in my mind's eye. It's like you mentioned Oppenheimer. Yeah. There's these films that are. It's like when I watched Avatar.
Avatar's up there for you. You love that one.
Yeah,
I loved it too.
There's just a beauty to it.
But did that come out this year?
No.
I was gonna say, damn.
But I mean, just like the type of film that it is, right? You think about how big it is, VFX, score, all the acting. There's just a lot of things that are, but. And I'm just going to go with me, right? I'm not going on anybody's scale, right? This isn't about what I think is going to win.
Yeah, just what you watch.
Right,
we'll do an Oscar episode later. Just what you watch.
Right now, for me, the best film for me has been American Symphony.
Symphony. There you go.
Yeah, man.
That was on Obama's top 2023 list.
Well, it would have to be, as considering that he and his wife are executive producers. Yeah. I'm not going to give it away for anyone who hasn't seen it, but I'll just say juxtaposition. And as we always, and I think I'll say this, as we always say here, filmmakers are people too. To generalize that, you could say creatives are people too. And one of the things that people should remember most, and I think this, you could say, harkens back to our discussion about Jonathan Majors and other people, is that celebrities are people too.
I love the word harken in the holiday season.
There you go. But you just don't know, and this is why I enjoyed that movie so much. You just don't know what's going on. Like you see stuff, right? You see, but you don't know. And I think that is why that one kind of was really good for me, is that it just gets back to everything that we do here. Like this isn't really about the celebrity and all the things. I mean, we've got people who've done some great things, been on some huge studio films, but we talk about the humans. We talk about the people. We talk about the real experiences that they have and that they go through in this creative life. I think that's why this conversation is so valuable. I mean, you want to go for the sensational stuff, you go read flipping People magazine, or, go to TMZ for that stuff. That's that sugar-coated crap, right? Like that's not what we do. And that's why for me, American Symphony was so great, is it's really not sugarcoating anything. It's giving you a view into something that you might never have had a view into.
I'm liking the Obamas in the film business. They also EP'd Leave the World Behind with Julia Roberts and Mahershala Ali and Ethan Hawke. I watched that a few days ago.
They want to say something.
And well, that was the whole thing. So I was at a dinner party, I think 2 nights ago, and the whole circle started talking about this movie, Leave the World Behind. Like, here's the thing, man. Here's the themes. And like, so basically it has like a very dystopian theme. It was made by Sam Esmail. So the guy who did Mr. Robot. So, it's going to have that kind of vibe, and directed by him, written by him. And they're like, what are Obamas trying to tell us? What are the Obamas trying to tell us? Oh, and I'm the film guy at the table, and I'm like, they just got the investment money. It's not really them. Right. They're not like, I'm not saying they didn't read a script. I'm not saying they didn't say, but it's not them. It's Sam. He's the one writing it and directing it and controlling the storytelling. He's the one with the POV. But they were so caught up in it. They were like, no. This is the Obamas trying to warn us. It was a mostly black party.
Right, of course it was.
They were like, this Obama's trying to warn us. They're trying to whisper in our ear about this. We need to be prepared.
Right.
And I'm like, no, there's been a lot of movies like this. They just haven't been executive produced by the Obamas.
Right. And I got to throw this in there for you, man, because there's been a lot of trailers. There's been a lot of teasers. There's been a lot of clips. There's a lot of stuff going on about that movie. I'm a little salty about Jagged Edge showing up in that movie. And the specific song that they chose to have Julia Roberts dance to, I just can't. So
no, it wasn't Jagged Edge. It was Next.
It was Next. That was Next.
Yeah. Next is the one that sang.
Yeah,
I used to play a song on piano.
Yeah, that was Next, bro. Come on.
I actually have the piano. Dude. I have the piano book of Next whole album.
Dude, I cannot. When that song came out, it was more like, this is an SNL track. This is not real. This is a joke of a song. Like, but it was the hottest thing. Every nightclub or whatever. Popular. But it was just, come on, man. Like, this is a real song. I feel a little poke
coming through on you. In the movie, Sam makes it perfectly silent, dude, so you can hear the whisper in the front of the song. It's like, I wonder if she can tell I'm hard right now.
Exactly. It's in the like. I couldn't, man, and I can't with Julia Roberts dancing to that song when I'm like, this song is not a real song. This is a spoof. This is like,
people love the song. Well, I said, there's songs that came out in the 90s that couldn't come out today.
I know, but
Top Authority couldn't be a rap group today. 8Ball and MJG could not let out Coming Out Hard.
Listen, bro, I'm talking about Julia Roberts dancing to a song in a movie produced by the Obamas. Singing a song about.
Well, it's done for comedic effect, and so the whole thing happens because. Basically, and this doesn't spoil the movie at all, but basically she says, you can't dance to jazz. And Mahershala Ali's like, of course you can dance to jazz. She's like, no, you can't. And then he has this amazing collection of vinyls, and she pulls out Next, and the song she plays
and hey, look, I don't even feel bad. about the fact that I got Next and Jagged Edge mixed up. No, I don't feel bad. Because when I was younger,
should feel bad about that.
I don't. When I was younger, I got them mixed up all the time. I'm like, they sound exactly the same. See, Boyz II Men and Jodeci came out. They didn't sound the same, bro.
They sound different.
They sound completely different. Jagged Edge, Next, man, they might as well just swap people and came out the same.
Well, Jagged Edge has the twins, and then I think they have a little bit raspier voices.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, if you played them, you know
who Next in the audience is loving this shit because they have no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah, right.
We're talking about 90s R&B here,
right.
But you know who Next tried to sound like? Even if they did maybe sound like Jagged Edge, I don't think they did. But if you're saying they did, I'll shake hands with you on that one.
Yeah.
But I know they were trying to sound like Blackstreet.
I believe that. I think Jagged Edge.
They were trying to sound like they were right. They were trying to sound like Teddy Riley and Chauncey and those guys around that time before you sort of hit that 96 to 2000 sound where you had, Silk and Stokely and all those groups.
Still Mad. So Julia Roberts dancing to the track. In a movie,
it wasn't great dancing.
It wasn't. Produced by
But I think that was on purpose. Yeah. So Obamas are in the movie business.
Yes, they are.
What a year this has been, 2023. I've loved doing this podcast with you every bit of the way. The good times, the bad times, the tough times, the mess ups, the amazing moments, the sound bites. It's been incredible, man. So I really want to thank you for taking this content creation journey with me one more year.
Yeah, man, this has been awesome. The guests have been amazing. I think that has been the icing on the proverbial cake, and we continue to have guests lined up into the new year, and we will continue to have. And I will never actually ever say that we'll have better and better guests. That is not a thing. We have amazing guests. Period. Go back through the catalog, right? If you're on the YouTubes, go through the YouTubes and check them out. If you're on the podcast platform, Spotify, if you're on Apple Podcasts, go listen. This is great stuff. Everyone has a different journey. Everyone has a different life. Everyone has different struggles, but we're all human. And that is an amazing thing to watch and to listen to throughout all of this, is how all of that, despite all of that, where people came from, what they're interested in, what their parents did with them, to them, for them as they were growing up, they all decided to settle in on or to pursue this industry and be creatives in filmmaking. And it's exciting and it's new with every conversation. So I totally look forward to 2024 and doing this with you, man, because it's great. This is an awesome opportunity we have.
Yeah, and in the spirit of everybody sort of being a human along with being a creative, and in the spirit of not knowing what people are going through, I'll say to this audience, I love you and thank you for spending time with us. And Nick, I love you. I appreciate you. And
love you
thank
too,
you
brother.
for doing this. And if you want to learn more about this delightful little podcast we've been doing for 4 years now, as Nick alluded to a moment ago, you can do that by simply going to www.bonsai.film or by going to themakeitpodcast.com or by searching for us on your choice of social media network. So YouTube, just search for The Make It Podcast. Instagram and X, we are at _Make It Podcast or _ The Make It Podcast. Let me fix that. And then on Facebook, you can just search for The Make It Podcast as well, and we will come right up. If you want to reach out to me, you can find me at Chris Barkley on X. I will respond to all your comments there for sure. It's the only social network I'm on, so otherwise I'd give you the rest of them. I don't have really anything else, but a Facebook, I am on Facebook. You can find me there too. And if you want to holler at Nick, you can email him at nick@bonsai.film. Last but not least, go to bonsai.film/subscribe to become a reader of our bi-weekly newsletter, Indie Insights. It is an amalgamation, an aggregation of all the things around the film world that we think might be hard to find or not paid attention to as much as it should. And we bring that to the forefront all in one delicious little newsletter. And so with that, Nick, can you please leave us with the credo?
Yes, sir. 2023 is almost behind us. It's a crazy thing to think. But throughout it, I think we have lived the principles that are in our credo, which are be better, be creative, be engaged.
And thank you for listening. Nick, talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. We'll do it again, brother.
Love you, producer Papa Bear. Thanks for everything, man. Peace.
It up.